Good morning. Go ahead and did you get the lights while we were doing the first part? I'd like your help in solving a problem, okay? It's important that we can be problem solvers and learn how to be problem solvers. Well, this is a problem of national concern. What does that mean? The whole country is concerned about it. Last summer, in July, Congress got together and passed some laws to try to deal with the problem. They want to help teachers. They want to help students. And the problem has to do with the fact that we're going to be coming up in about 6 years, and there's going to be all these jobs that need to be filled, and not enough people to fill the jobs. So guess who they're looking to fill these jobs? Turn to the person next to you and say, probably you. That's exactly right. They're looking to our education system and our students to learn some skills that are going to be needed to fill the jobs. The jobs are in an area called computer science. And that really just means a lot of different things working with computers. If you go to college and you get a degree in computer science, you can actually get one of the top paying jobs coming out of college as an undergraduate. That means you don't have to go get a master's or a PhD. And if you have computer skills, they're in high demand. So that's what we're here to talk about, though, is that problem. Who's heard the term STEM? It's an educational term. Okay, the two teachers are raising their hand. STEM stands for?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. Those are areas of education. That's just a subset of all the topics we can learn in school. But those particular topics are valuable for certain jobs that make our nation highly competitive, especially when it comes to security, defense, and things that are important to all of us. Now, there's something that's not in that list, and that's computer science. Computer science isn't in the list, and so Congress got together and they passed a couple of bills called the Success in Education Act. And that's where they're going to try to get teachers better equipped to teach those skills so that our students can learn those skills. And so they're trying to do whatever they can to make that happen. Well, if we're going to look at our nation, and in the area of STEM, what was it again?
Science, technology, engineering, math.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. Y'all say it over here. What was it?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
And what's not in it?
Science,
Computer science. So anyway, in the STEM, the United States is doing very average on an international level. That means all over the world, we're just below average if you look at all of our education measures that they do. And the countries that are ahead of us, or who are the leaders on these areas, are what? Name two countries that are probably obvious guesses if you hear about countries being advanced in technology. China, number one. Japan, correct. And then I'm going to give you a couple of others. Can y'all read that? Vietnam. Slovenia. Who's ever heard of Slovenia? It's part of the former Yugoslavia. If you go to Italy and look to the right, they broke that Yugoslavia up into different countries, and one of them Slovenia. I've actually been there. I used to teach classes for IBM, and they had me go to Slovenia and train their sales team there on technology. And it was in winter, and it was beautiful. We actually met at a ski resort in Slovenia for training. So maybe we can meet there in a few years as we travel the globe. But here's the deal, is that the United States isn't real happy that we're way down the list, and it has our congressmen and women concerned about it, and they think that the thing that we need to do is to somehow extend STEM to include computer science more. And that's what they're trying to do. When I was here last, I came and talked about technology to some of your classmates. And I was invited to come talk about opportunities and to try to encourage people to think about becoming entrepreneurs. And people are looking to you and your ideas and your ability to go start businesses to keep our economy going and to keep it growing. That's where we're looking for solutions, is to get you guys thinking creatively, equipping you with the tools to go do something about it. Well, a lot of the tools we have are technology related. And so one of the skills that's really important in this list of computer science is programming. And I started my talk when I was here last talking about a 7th grader who started programming. And by the time he was a junior in high school, he sold his company for many millions of dollars because he had come up with an idea of how to do something, and he wrote programs and built a company around it. And many millions of dollars were like 30 or 40 million, although it wasn't officially announced how much money it was, people were guessing. And he became one of the wealthiest and youngest entrepreneurs in history. Okay? But the thing is that you have all the tools here, right here in your community, with your school and other support networks. You have the tools you need because of the age of the internet and computers in order to make a difference. So afterwards, I turned to Ms. Watson and I said, okay, so we're going to get these kids, they seem properly motivated. We'll get these kids some programming class. And she says, well, no, that won't be possible. And there's just a problem with the skills needed being too high in the curriculums that she might even have to consider. And so again, that's just here. Well, that's a problem of national concern because that's that way everywhere. If you're going to be successful in education, there's 3 things you want to do. You want to address this area. You want students that are properly motivated, right? If you're going to be successful in learning, it's important to be motivated. Would you agree? It's also important that you have the skills needed to tackle the training. You can't just jump into certain things. There's a lot of problems when we're not trained and we have things that are just beyond us. We need to have a good match, the materials and our learners' skills. Okay? And the last thing you need, or the big 3 in my list, is you need access. Okay? So I've come up with some things I want to share with you, but before I get into that, I want to ask you a little bit about how would you solve this problem? And by the way, some sources I've researched said that China teaches 100% of the students programming. And remember, China is leading here. So maybe programming is an important thing that we should think about tackling. And that's what I want to ask you is maybe, how could we get started solving that problem? Now, before you answer, I just want you to understand that whenever I see this, 100% of the students in China being taught programming, I thought to myself, okay, motivation, skills, and access, China's a pretty big country. I have a feeling they don't have the tools to give 100% of their students programming. I just have a feeling that 100% is a pretty hard to support number. probably a high percentage, probably more emphasis is placed on it. But be careful when people talk about always, never, 100%, whatever. So I suspect those numbers are just some guesstimates, right? So I'm not saying they're fact, but I am saying that's what you'll read about if you go research this. You'll have some people who are pretty prominent saying China's teaching 100% of their kids programming. Well, perhaps not. But that's not the question. But I didn't want to work that in there because it's important that we learn critical thinking skills and we learn to, I think, be skeptical. It's a wise thing, and always verify what people are telling you. Okay? That's part of learning to think for yourself. Just question and verify. But back to the problem. What do you think? Do you think we could come up with some ideas for a congressman? If a congressman came here and says, what are we going to do? China's ahead of us. Slovenia is ahead of us. We got to get computer science going. Programming's key. What do you think? Any ideas for possible solutions? It's time to think out loud a little bit. Any ideas whatsoever? Got a problem, national concern.
Maybe if programming was involved more in the high schools and middle schools.
Okay.
Students go and try to get to colleges.
Okay, get more programming going in middle and high schools, right? All right, how do we do that?
Maybe you have to
Train teachers and so that is a skills issue for the teacher, but also for the student. What about what do you know about programming right now? Does anybody here know how to program? Does anybody have defined programming? What does programming mean? Programming is a way to write very precise instructions for a computer so it does something. Okay? Hopefully something meaningful, something useful. The reason that we care about technology is that we want you guys to be able to have a better quality of life by using technology to improve the quality of your life. Sometimes technology can detract from the quality of life. It can cause us to become non-productive and waste time. So just using technology doesn't mean that it's automatically wonderful. But using it to solve problems and improve your quality of life is the goal here. So just wanted to state that. So we got a problem with skills and programming. Programming is precise instructions, and the problem has been that a programming language is hard to learn. It requires a lot of hard work. It's writing all these instructions. It's called coding. Have you ever heard that term? Coding? And so precise language, there's lots of them, and there's lots of different types of programs. How many of you here play musical instrument? I see a show of hands. Anybody? Okay, for the record, we got 0 people playing musical instrument. Okay? And by the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21 students are here today. And we are videotaping this, that's why I just wanted to have on record that there's 21 students. Now, how many of you have ever sat at a piano keyboard? Ah, we got some hands going. How many of you have actually pushed the keys? How many of you would like to play a concert and perform? There's a lot of work that goes from that initial exposure to actually being able to play. How many of you enjoy piano music? Somebody sits down and really plays on the piano. Isn't it wonderful? I mean, I think it's beautiful. I'm impressed with the talent, but there's a lot of hard work that goes in from just kind of sitting there and pushing a few keys and making beautiful music come out. But that's real similar to programming. It's a lot of hard work to just sit down at a computer and start writing instructions and get it to where you can actually do an app. Okay? Well, what we're here to talk about today is something we've done. I want to introduce you to it. And we want to try to improve all 3 of these things to solve this problem here. we want to start with 7th grade. If you guys will work with us, Ms. Watson's agreed that we want to get together, we want to just start trying to do some stuff. So I'm going to go away and try to put some training materials together. And I'm going to show it to you today and let you kind of give me some feedback, comments, or observations. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
Let's see what we've done. You see, the problem isn't just with students in computer science. In business, there's a lot of people who do not know how to, okay? Let's take that and see. That's the guy who's supporting the system, and I want Patty to find out what he means. So anyway, the idea is that business people have a problem, and then they're waiting on their programmers, and they want so much stuff that the programmers can't keep up. The whole world of access to information is kind of guarded by the programmers. And all the business people say, hey, I want to know this, and they say, well, I'll write a program. And they say, well, when can you have it ready? And they say, oh, a couple months. And it's like, whoa, what am I going to do for a couple of months? It's not very productive. When people make their requests and they keep piling up and nobody's working on them, you know what you call that? It's called a backlog. An application's backlog has been accumulating in companies for decades, and people are very frustrated. So again, one of the things we want to do is change that, and I'm going to show you how we changed it. The idea here is to do programming without coding. Let's take the coding out of it. It'd be kind of like teaching you how to play the piano much quicker so that you can play concerts without really having to spend all that time doing all the lessons. Yes, ma'am?
So that make it less precise, less like frustrating.
Does it make it less precise? There's usually a sacrifice, and it's usually in the area of performance. We've been working on this for years, decades, trying to make it easier for people to use computers, and there's usually some efficiency problems introduced. And what happens is another issue, and I want to just mention this and answer your question. When you do things and they're less precise, one of the number one reasons that computers fail is they don't scale. Is that we build things and there's scalability problems. Meaning, it might work for you because we did it and it works, but then we tried to let all of y'all do it at the same time, and then the inefficiencies compound and it doesn't scale. And this just happened nationally with our healthcare fiasco. They built a system and they didn't test it, and it had some inefficiencies that when thousands of users came and got on, it just crashed. So that's part of the byproduct of writing and doing things inefficiently. But the nice thing is that when we're talking about a learning context, then we can actually don't have to face a lot of scalability problems. And I've already thought through how to solve those. Because we want to provide access, what we want to build is something that is fun to do, is relevant, and teaches you how to solve real problems, that lowers the skill set so more people can start learning programming concepts without having to write code. And then the access, we want it to be online, self-paced, so you don't have to involve anybody. You can do it at home or anywhere you want to. And we want it to be free of charge. And so I'm working to put together a plan to get people to help create money to pay for the development and to create for the systems so that we can scale properly and have a solution that people can use all over the country. And we're going to pilot in 2 places, right here and also in Texas. And in Texas, we're going to do it in the high school, and here we're going to do it in the middle school, because I think we have smarter middle school students than most other states, don't we? Is that true? I'm just playing. Just thought I'd try to get a reaction. All right, so I'm going to raise any comments or questions on any of this. Did you think of something on the solution before I erase it? Any other input? Okay. Well, when I was here last, I was here because my granddaughter was in the class. How many of you know my granddaughter, Lexi? Okay. And Lexi kind of had a role to play, so I thought of the solution. We were driving home, and Mrs. Watson told me that, Miss Watson, is it Mrs. or Mrs.? Mrs. Watson told me that we don't have any way to teach programming to the 7th graders right now. I thought, well, what I'm working on could be used in that regard, so I'm going to show you what I've been working on, and then we created a name for it. If you're going to do something like a project, we give it a code name. So we called it Project Lexi. Okay? And Project Lexi is what I'm going to show you how to do an application without coding. All right? My product is called Megavolt. And right here it says powered by Megavolt. Mega is a Sanskrit word meaning cloud. Who's heard of cloud computing? Anybody heard that term? Okay, only a couple of hands going up. The world of computing is using that term a lot to describe a way to have computers working for you out in the internet, basically, more affordable. I've just logged in to a system that we're going to use, and it's a development environment. Okay? And one of the things that we have here is some applications that have been built. And this particular application, right there, is all the steps of the application. Okay, so I'm just showing you the tool. What we will do is we'll have you log in, watch a video of someone showing you how to do something, and then you'll be given a chance to follow the same steps. So that's why it's self-paced. If you don't get it the first time, you can watch it again. You can watch as many times as you need to, and try it as many times as you need to, until you can follow the steps. And with that delivery model, then you won't require a lot of help, because you have the teacher built in showing you all the steps. The idea then is to give you problems to solve that you can learn STEM things. What's STEM? Science, technology, engineering, and math. And you'll be writing programs, and so you'll have multiple benefits to participating with what we're doing. So what we have here, what you see, is a canvas, okay? And things have been filled out on the canvas. If we wanted to create a new application, we would just create a new canvas. And so now I'm working with like an artist canvas, right? You start, if you could draw a picture, you start with a blank sheet. Over here on the left are the types of controls and what we call activities that you can do things with. We have here a data source activity, and maybe you recognize some of the terms down the left. It says database, web services, read Excel, SharePoint, RSS, and OLAP. Those are some things where you can go get information. But we're going to pull in a database, and all you do is click and hold and drag it, and it starts to ask you some questions. So we can tell it where's the data source that we want to use. Now so far, all I've done is click and hold and drag and drop. That's the interface that you need to use. In this case, we're going to pick an airport's database, and we say use that connection. It's already been set up for us, and since it's been set up, that's all we take. We're now connected to a database that has airport information. Now the reason that I selected the airport's database is I've come up with a problem to solve, and it goes like this. You work for NASA. What's NASA? It's our space program. It's National what? Aeronautics and Space Agency? I don't know, everybody calls it NASA. NASA has been working and sending shuttles back and forth to space and manning space stations and doing a lot of flights that you go into outer space and you come back and you fly and land space shuttles. And so the problem I made up to solve was that you work for NASA, you've just been notified that there's a space shuttle of another country that is broken. It needs to land, and they're asking NASA's help to find an airport above 10,000 feet where they can land that. They think that it's broken, they need to land it at a high altitude, and they just need you to tell them where are the airports in the world above 10,000 feet. Fair enough? That's the problem. And of course you're thinking, well, where would I start? The point is that we want to step you through a process to just go to the problem. We have an airports database that we already have set up and we have access to. That means we have all the airports in the world and we know their altitudes, and we just need to be able to access that database. And since the information is available, it's a pretty simple thing to do. So the idea is that we go to the airports database, and then we want to generate a report, and we drop the report activity. Since we've only connected to one database, we choose the one database. To get the columns of the database, it's reading it, and these are technical fields, and when we do the training, we're going to teach you all these things. But right now, you can recognize that there's this high-level name, DB connection 1, and then a field name, column name, city name, etc., etc. And so we select some of these things. And I've selected just a few fields. And now it asks me, how do I want to filter the information? And what did we say the criteria was? An altitude. And you see that little